next session is on Islamic finance in non-Muslim countries, learnings from abroad, very relevant for India and Indian Islamic finance.
And everybody has different views about how this can be done. Some people feel that it is not possible. There are a lot of skeptics, particularly those who feel that, it hasn't really worked anywhere else. If it hasn't really worked anywhere else, how is it going to work here? And there are people who have been advocating this so long for the last 20 years of their lives, and they're not seeing that kind of traction. So, because at the end of the day, when you talk about the 2 trillion Islamic finance assets, of that 1.5 trillion is actually banking assets. And of that, 85% of the 1.5 trillion sits in only 8 countries. We have 56, I think, OIC members, and there's only 8 countries that make up 85% of the total Islamic banking assets. And it's largely Iran, which is the biggest, Saudi, Malaysia, Qatar, Kuwait, and Turkey. And when you talk about sukuk, 400 billion sukuk, 92.5% sits with 6 countries. 92.5%. Half of it sits in Malaysia. So how can we actually globalize this phenomenon? And particularly if you want to go out to non-Muslim countries. I look at Singapore, I look at the UK, they've introduced laws. I'm encouraged when I look at the United Kingdom. They actually have 6 standalone Islamic banks. And in total, they have about 20 IFIs. But still not big enough, but it is a start. But in reality, you have Singapore, you have Hong Kong, they have made changes to their laws, and yet we don't see very much traction. So, but having said that, we want to learn from those people who have been able to move their markets a little bit. Azmir, the one on my right, he's CEO of Amana Bank, and Amana Bank has done an amazing feat in barely less than 10 years, right? 6 years. It's come so far. Its assets has actually grown 7 times from 2016 to 2017. So that's a great achievement. So, Azmir, for all those skeptics and people who say that it is not possible for us to really push Islamic finance in India because we're not an Islamic country, what say you?
Rabbi Sahri Sadri wa Yasri Amri Wahlul Uqdatan min Lisani Yafqahu Qawli. First of all, let me thank for giving this opportunity, honor to me, the honor of presenting Sri Lankan experience towards Islamic banking journey. Let me begin with the global perspective. Right. Let me begin with the global perspective. Today, the Islamic banking penetration globally is less than 1%, with a global Muslim population of 23%. But if you look at Sri Lankan context, our penetration is 1.5%, with a population of less than 10%. The point to note is that Sri Lanka is ahead of the global average in Islamic banking. This fact is validated by Thomson Reuters and ICD Development Index, which scores countries on quantitative developments, knowledge, governance, CSR, and awareness. The most important point to note is this index evaluates or scores 131 countries. Out of these 131 countries, 84 are non-Muslim countries. Only 47 countries are majority Muslim. The index also goes to rank top 15 countries. And Sri Lanka, again, is the only non-Muslim country within the top 15, and we are in the rank of 13. See, going beyond, if you look at the numbers of all Islamic countries, Sri Lanka is just well ahead. So the question is, as Raja mentioned, how did Sri Lanka get there? How did Sri Lanka come about embracing the true Islamic banking? And where did we begin? See, as a first step, what we did was demonstrating the market need for Islamic banking. Market need not only for Muslims, but society at large, what it can do. And people wanted the people-friendly banking, the alternative banking, or the ethical banking when we truly demonstrated that. Of course, this required going beyond the faith value and showcasing overarching economic values of Islamic finance. We highlighted the fact that how Islamic banks can help boost the SME sector, how Islamic banks can help bring foreign direct investments. And then we also showcase the universal value proposition. We will look at that later. Then as a second step, we demonstrated to all required stakeholders, the investors, the regulators, the government, everyone, how the Islamic banking can grow into risk management, the governance and compliance, bring in the global best practices. Of course, we got the help of IOFI, ISB, and Islamic Development Bank as a technical partner, but alhamdulillah, we were able to demonstrate. Then we got into the most important and the crucial step of securing legal and regulatory acceptance. Of course, it was not an easy task, but it happened to be mere inclusion of two clauses to the Banking Act that made the difference. While demonstrating to the regulators and the government to push for the change or push for the addition of Islamic banking related concepts, alhamdulillah, we were able to launch the first Islamic bank. But in demonstrating to the regulators and the government, the most important aspect was the universal value proposition of Islamic bank. It was not our faith. Of course, by faith we needed, but as a regulator, as a government, we had to demonstrate the universal value proposition. This is what we did. See, if you look at the financial sector in isolation, excessive growth can lead into debt trap. This debt trap can affect the individuals, institution, even sovereigns. We have seen number of pages in world economic history how the debt trap has affected people, institutions, and the countries. So what happens in Islamic banking? We are not allowed to operate in isolation in the financial sector alone. Whatever we do has to be linked or integrated to the real sector, the external sector, the fiscal sector. When these sectors are linked to the financial sector, it brings about the financial discipline, the financial accessibility, and the financial inclusion. We truly demonstrated by doing this how it has helped the SMEs to flourish and how it has helped to bring in the foreign direct investments. See, if you look at the conventional banking concepts, they bet on financial indiscipline. See, the common conventional credit card is a good example. The banks don't want the credit card outstanding to be settled fully. They want 5% to be paid and the rest to be revolved again and again so that there can be additional fees, charges. But Islamic banking truly bets on financial discipline. That is what a progressive economy needs. So having established, truly demonstrated the value proposition, we got the approval of the regulators and the government, and the first Islamic bank, that Amana Bank, was launched. And today, it has developed into an entire industry, two windows by the state-owned banks, 14 other windows by the private banks, 3 Takaful institutions, and 4 unit trusts. If you talk about the accessibility in Sri Lanka, Islamic financing is available in all of its 9 provinces and all of its 25 districts. And the impact, it has helped to develop infrastructure, agriculture, trading, services, manufacturing, fisheries, shipping and logistics, aviation and transport, and various services. Alhamdulillah, Amana Bank was able to receive numerous awards and recognition within a few years of operation. Winning the best and upcoming Islamic bank in the world was our crowning moment. It brought us honor not only for Amana Bank, but country, Sri Lanka as a country. Then again, the award for Best Islamic Innovation Award for Financial Inclusion, again, was awarded to us. See, the one particular product I feel very emotional about is, besides helping infrastructure, aviation, and manufacturing, is the financial inclusion catering to the unbanked and underbanked sector of the society. Earlier, our Honorable Tun Haitun, World WIEF President, spoke about underbanked and unbanked segment of the society. In fact, we worked on this product for almost 2 years. The product is commonly known as, in this part of the world, pawning, where the small timers, they go pawn their jewelry and get little financing for education, agriculture, traveling, health, various things. But our existing or the amended Banking Act didn't permit that. But what we did, we didn't give up. We worked with the Sharia scholars, we worked with the regulators, and we exactly complied with the Pawning Act of Sri Lanka by creating 2 different products. Of course, Qard Hasan is allowed. You don't need to have a law. This is what we exactly did. By keeping the gold as safekeeping, we charge certain amount, and we allowed the financing on Qard Hasan basis. Alhamdulillah, that has brought about excellent impact on amongst the regulators, the country. And today, if you ask me what is the fastest growing product, is this product. And Alhamdulillah, see, when I went to receive this award in Washington along the IMF conference, I asked him, what made you to choose this small product amongst all other big giants in the world Islamic finance field? He said, it is the financial inclusion and your desire to take care of unbanked and underbanked sector of the economy. So what I would do is, I have a 4-minute clip on this. Before I close, I would ask them if you could play this 4-minute video to get a better understanding of what that product is, inshallah.
And we find that in conventional financing, the richest of the rich are always served and well served. Everybody has products for them. That's the target for everybody.
At the same time, there are people in the society, they are right at the bottom of the pyramid where they have no financial excess, even to meet an emergency need.
நான் இந்தியாவில் ஓதிட்டு வந்தோம் மௌலவி கல்யாண கட்டணத்துக்கு பிற்பாடு செலவுக்கு பத்தலை
ஒரு சீட்டை செய்து வீடை செய்கிறது செஞ்சோடனே மரம் வெள்ளம் கொண்டு வந்தால் மரம் உடஞ்சி போகுது இப்படி தாங்க லைஃப்
வெள்ளம் வந்து வார வெள்ளம் தாக்குறீங்க வீடு தான் சரியா இந்த வருஷத்துக்கு வருது
நான் கல்யாணம் முடிச்சு 99 7 வருஷம் மாஷால்லாண்டு நல்லா தான் இருந்தேன்
அப்போ ஒரே ஒரு வண்டியை வச்சு ஒரு ஹயரு அந்த வண்டியை ஓட்டி அதில் அப்படி சம்பாரிச்சு இப்போ எல்லாம் முடிஞ்ச பொழுது இந்த தண்ணி வந்துருச்சு இந்த தண்ணி வந்ததோட எனக்கு வாகனம் அத்தனையுமே நின்று எல்லாமே வீணாக போச்சு
குமரப்புள்ளியோண்ட வச்சுக்கொண்டு நான் ஈக்கணுமே
வீட்டுக்கு நிலைமையில யாரும் அந்த பொண்ணு பார்க்க
2016 ஜனவரியில் தான் அவங்க பிரெயின் டியூப் கட்டின்னு சொல்லி கண்டுபிடிச்சாங்க. கட்டி செக் பண்ணுற நேரம் ஸ்டேஜ் 4 தான். அதில் இருந்து எல்லாமே கஷ்டம்தான், யாருக்கும் தெரியாது. என்னோட உள்ளத்தில் பொறுத்து எல்லாருக்கும் தெரியும்.
Unless those needs are addressed, they can move into further poverty, or it can even be life-threatening. So our product innovation team has been working and coming out with various products. One of those products is our gold financing.
We take the gold and keep it in our custody, and that's the surety for the loan that we give. If you borrow 100, you return 100, you get your gold back. But there is a custodial charge for the safekeeping of the gold.
When you are in a desperate situation, it is the women who come forward to help out the families in their emergency. That is why we have established dedicated units served by the ladies, so that they can get this required financing at the privacy that they deserve and they need.
அங்கே நாங்கள் வட்டிக்கு எங்கேயும் நாங்கள் வைக்க பேத்திக்க மாட்டோம். நாங்கள் வட்டின்றது விருப்பமில்லாத ஒன்று தான்.
அம்மானா பேங்க் வரவிட்டு தான் இஸ்லாமிய பேங்க் நீக்குதுன்னு சொல்லி ஒரு மனசுக்கு தைரியத்தோடு அங்கே போய்த்து இன்னொருத்தவங்கள்ட்ட நான் எடுத்துக்கொண்டு நான் வச்சு நான் அதுக்குள்ளே இதை எனக்கு இப்போ பயம் இல்லையே.
We actually do not try to pry on someone's misery. We try to help them. We try to be a partner to them.
That is where we are different from others.
உண்மையிலே சொல்ல போனால் அந்த அமானா பேங்க் எனக்கு கை கொடுத்தது அந்த 50,000 ரூபா எடுத்ததுக்கு எனக்கு அந்த டைமுக்கு ஒரு 5 கோடி ரூபாயோட பொறுமதி.
That emergency loan, it may be a small amount, it may be 10, 20, 30, 50,000 rupees, but it goes a long way in alleviating the distress that these people sometimes get into.
It does transform lives. As much as it transforms their lives, it transforms our lives as well. Because at the end of the day, when I finish my work and I go home, I know I've actually helped them when they needed me.
It is part of our mission, enabling growth and enriching lives, and we believed in it. We passionately work towards that.
This gold loan serves the people who have no knowledge of banking, but they still need funds to get by in an emergency. That is what I think is the success of this, that it serves the poorest of the poor.
Thank you, Azmir. That was really, truly inspirational, if I may say. I'd like to, there's several points from Azmir's presentation. We have different issues and different problems in different countries. So we have different challenges in India. You may say, okay, but Sri Lanka has different sets of challenges and they could overcome it in a way that we probably cannot here in India. Sri Lanka is smaller, we are big. The point that we're trying to put forth here is, in their small country, it was a mountainous thing to overcome. It was not an easy journey by any means. So they started out doing the same thing that we had discussed in the first session, was to pitch inclusiveness for the good of all of Sri Lanka. It was never a conversation about just taking care about the Muslims. What Brother Azmir was talking about was the unbanked. He didn't say the unbanked Muslims. He said the unbanked and the underbanked. And we must continue to remember this, that when you talk about Maqasid Sharia, is about the good of all humanity, all humanity. And that was how they were able to push through the challenges to their regulators. And the other thing that came out again was the same conversation that we mentioned in the first session, was to work within the ambit of permissibility of their regulations. Do what you can do. Safekeeping, wadiya, you don't need anybody's permission. You want to do Qad Hasan, you don't need anybody's permission. Maybe you can start with that. Malaysia, actually, 30 years ago, we started with the same. We did Iran, similar, the whole pawn concept, and we Islamicized it. We institutionalized it. And we hope that that's a lesson for us here to see how we can then start introducing Islamic finance in small bites. Now I'd like to also share with you, you might be wondering why we're having the dashing Italian brother sitting next to Azmir, Alberto Brugnoni. You know, right now Europe, for most of us in Asia, is a place that don't welcome us. There's a lot of Islamophobia. A country like Italy has got about 1.6 million Muslims, about 2%, 2 million, 3 million now. But you have 8 mosques, I was told.
Mosque?
Yeah.
Mosque, only in Milan we have 98.
Well done, well done.
When I say mosque, I mean musalla, not really
Musalla.
structured mosque, but places where you have the 5 prayers every day.
Well done.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you. And in Rome, we have, you can easily Google it, we have the most beautiful mosque in the Western countries. That was built 25 years ago with the handasa, with the architecture of a mosque, with white marbles and madrasa and everything. And it's said that, you know, if you have been to Rome, Rome is a hilly place with a lot of hills. And it's said that it's the only building higher than Vatican in Rome.
Well, we have to go and have a look then.
You Google it, you find it very easily.
You know, our brother Alberto here has done something quite, the first ever, was to the major breakthrough, I would say, was your capital market transaction in Russia. That was quite a breakthrough, and it actually won the European Deal of the Year. And to all those who feel, here in particular in India, that it's so difficult for us to move or to get there, and it seems so impossible because we're a minority. But the reality is this minority Muslim in this country is the second largest Islamic population in the world. Larger official data says that you're next biggest to Indonesia, official data. So maybe you could share with us, Alberto, and maybe inspire us a little bit. Is there really hope? Can we really move this mountain since you're in a country full of absolutely tons of, well, you're right in the heart of the Vatican.
Thank you, Jatan. Assalamu alaikum جميعا والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد, thank you for WIEF for this invitation. And I've been attending those events across the globe, Moscow, Johannesburg, KL, and I always see a great deal of attendance and inspiring events. I will keep it short and sweet, but blunt. We started with a SAIF. A SAIF is an advisory in 1986, so it's a long time ago. It's certainly the first advisory in Europe, probably one of the first in the world. We are legally based in Milan, but we have done transactions across the globe. You mentioned Russia, but we did an enormous amount of work in Afghanistan, in Palestine, in Hijaz, in Italy, and across all European countries. To get to the point, I keep hearing everywhere, and also this morning here, that, okay, we would like to do it, but we don't have infrastructures, and the regulators, and the politicians, and blah, 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 blah. The reality of fact is that, and I'm talking about out of my experience, there is no a single jurisdiction in the world, there is no a single jurisdiction in the world, being common law or civil code law, whereas today you cannot implement a sort, one of the modes of Islamic finance. Is impossible. Islamic finance comes from Sharia, is done for humans, but in reality, Islamic finance is not Islamic, is Abrahamitic. If you go back to the tradition of Jews, of Christian, of the origins, and all refers to the Prophet Abraham, alayhi salatu wasalam, you see exactly the same fundamentals that nowadays are upheld by Islamic finance, which means that there is a common ground. It is the reason why when Raja Tech says that is for everybody, certainly is for everybody because the roots are common, and nobody thinks about that. So when you speak about, we're talking about sharing, profit and loss sharing, about tangible assets, about social justice, about respect of environment, all those things are inscribed, of course, engraved in the Quran al-Azim, but also it's embedded in everybody's mind, whatever their walk of life is. It is the reason why Islamic finance, it's an easy sell to pitch everywhere. 2 weeks ago, there was in Shanghai, in China, a very interesting conference. It's an annual meeting between the EUE and China on Islamic finance. And the founder of La Riba is an Islamic bank in Austin, Texas, US. And he has been there for 40 years, a long time. And he said a very interesting thing. He said that nowadays, in the United States, there is no need of special regulation to accommodate a number of transactions like a lease, ijara, like joint ventures, like mudaraba. And this is actually true everywhere in the world. Remember that one of the largest provider of home financing, Sharia-compliant home financing, is Guidance, which is based across the Potomac in Virginia, in front of Washington, D.C. Everywhere nowadays, you are able to do some transactions. And this responsibility, not of the regulators, not of bankers, but of all you guys sitting there, guys and girls sitting there, to start to do something. Remember that there are a lot of hadiths of the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, that says everything you do it, start from the bottom, not from the top. Islamic finance, and I speak from the height of my experience, is a bottom-up approach. So stop it with the things we don't have the rules and the regulations and this and that. I'm not at all acquainted with the legal framework, of course, of Tamil Nadu, but certainly you can do some sort of micro murabaha. You can do some sort of leasing, or certainly musharaka. And from this, you will grow a tree. I mean, a tree is at the very beginning is a seed, a small seed, and it will become a great tree. So please, it's a question of perspective. Stop thinking that you need something coming from above helping you. In reality, our faith is based on our faith, and it is in our own hands. Also, if I may add one thing, remember that the very concept of bank, as we know it, is alien to Islamic finance. Even if you want to translate bank in Arabic, you need to use a neologism, a new word, bank bunuk, because there is no word for banks in Arabic. If you want to translate in classical Arabic, you will say masraf masarif, which is an exchange, not an exchange activity, not a bank. So you don't really need an intermediary to connect people with money with people that don't have money. And of course, this will be much help nowadays with this new technology, the so-called blockchain, which has nothing to do with cryptocurrencies, but blockchain is a automatic ledger, if you want, that will allow to transform Islamic mode of contract, Islamic contracts, into smart contracts and distributing financing without the use of an intermediary. Keep in mind that the big trend nowadays, at least in EU, is disintermediations. So you want to connect, this is all the story about impact investing, all the story about social responsibilities, is to cut off, the intermediary and to connect the have with the have-nots. So my message, my advice, my brotherly advice is that to start it yourself. And I have a great respect for all the work done by the old friends Rafi that spoke this morning and Raja Tech, of course. All this is very important, but also don't forget that you can join the ends by starting from the other side of the approach, from the bottom up. And happy to discuss with you guys later on. Thank you.
Well, I think that's that has probably got most of us in this room rethinking, because a lot of people have come to me and say, you are very lucky your government supports you. You are very lucky top down, the framework is handed to you on a silver platter. So I guess what Alberto is trying to say here, if you don't have that given to you on a silver platter, you cannot then keep on saying, I cannot move. That is just no way for me to move. The bottom-up approach has worked in many other markets. I spoke about Singapore also being a non-Muslim country and being able to move the world's first waqf sukuk in a non-Muslim country, and to be able to develop waqf properties in a way that you and I have not been able to do. A small little tiny nation had inspired us bottom up. And there's the bit where you say in Europe and also in Asia, the buzzword right now is ESG. It's a sexy thing now, ESG. What is actually ESG? It is pretty much following along the lines of our Sharia parameters. We have to be socially aware, governance, care for the environment. So ESG in itself is a great pitch for us as Muslims to push forth Sharia compliant financing. And it can be done in different ways. So in conclusion, you may not have the luxury of the framework that we have in Malaysia, but you have alternatives to move things like Alberto has done in his markets, and how Brother Azmir has done in his market, and the likes of the rest who are doing it bottom up. So that's very inspirational, and we hope that, you know, all of us here will be greatly inspired to say, I am going to be the agent of change. I am going to make that first small move, because, you know, that first small step is going to be a big step for mankind. Of course, for some people, you say, okay, some countries would have that push because your Muslim population is big. So a country like Australia, for instance, and Brother Assad is from Australia. He runs an asset management company. Again, I met all my brothers throughout my time in the industry over the last 20 years. And I asked Assad, I don't even know why you're doing this. You have, I don't know, a grand total of one Muslim, no, 600,000, right? Yeah, he's got 600,000. It's really small. But what Assad had done is really amazing. What he has done is he's actually built an Islamic, a Sharia-compliant mortgage business. So tell us, Assad, from the time that when I was in Australia, we were pushing the laws, it never happened, and there's still no legislative amendments whatsoever to your tax laws. So how are you even doing business today?
Thanks, Roger. That's it. Very hard question to start with, but thanks. It's a fair question. Look, I wanted to begin by saying thank you to everybody. You know, it's really an honour to speak at this conference. It's an even bigger honour to speak about Islamic finance in Australia, as opposed to the Australian cricket team in Australia. That would be a much harder conversation to have. So I'm very pleased to talk about this. Look, I wanted to answer your question, Rajate, by just setting the scene a bit, to really look at the context in Australia. So Australia, as Rajate says, population of Muslims is 600,000. Total population of Australia is about 25 million, which is probably about as big as maybe a small city in India. So it's a very, very tiny population for such a big country. Our home loan market in Australia, so this measure measures banks and non-banks, and it's a measure of the total amount of loans for housing in Australia is worth about $1.7 trillion, right? Our pension fund market, so superannuation funds in Australia, so we have a compulsory system of contributing to pension funds. So our domestic pension fund market's about $2.7 trillion, and we have 4 major banks in Australia. Those 4 major banks, their banking assets are about, in total, about $3.5 trillion, right? So you've got all of those numbers, then you've got, you know, 600,000 Muslims out of a total of 25 million, right? So I think if you approach Islamic finance, and when we started this, we thought to ourselves, what's the best pitch we make, right? If you approach it from the perspective of saying, well, let's look at how much money there is overseas and let's look at how much money you can make out of it, you're never going to win. As Muslim minorities in a largely non-Muslim majority country, you're never going to come up on that kind of analysis. So I think the perspective that we focus on and what Amana focuses on is about financial inclusion, right? So we focused on home finance for a number of reasons I'll go into, but first and foremost, it's about ensuring that an inability to get financial services in the way you want doesn't have a disproportionate effect on you, right? So we want to have an inclusive society where everybody can access financial services, be they Muslim or non-Muslims, and access them in a way that's fair, that's ethical, which is really the heart of Islamic finance. And when I look at our customers nowadays, so we've grew our finance book from zero, from literally nothing 4 years ago, to, you know, myself and a couple of others that left our jobs to actually start this. We grew it from zero to about $200 million at the moment. And we did that coming from a zero base, but now when you look at our customers, and you see them in their homes, and you see how empowered they are to have stability, to be included in the financial system, and also they're able to, you know, gain wealth by house prices increasing. That's a very empowering thing, and I think that's at the heart of Islamic finance. We look at all the figures, but it boils down to how the consumer's enjoying it and how that's empowering them. So when we decided to do this, there's a couple of things we had to look at. So number one was the regulatory system, right? So what do you do about a regulatory system that doesn't accommodate Islamic finance? Now, India, a bit like Australia, is a country that has a Commonwealth legacy from Britain. It has common laws. We have stamp duties and taxes, the same as India. The great thing about Islamic finance, you'll find, and Alberto made this point, is there's such a wide variety of instruments to use. And you can choose instruments that work in your jurisdiction. And the instrument we used was a lease-to-own model. You rent a house and then you purchase it, right? So when we approach the market in language they understand. We didn't say this is ijara muntaha bit-tamlik, which it is. We simply say it's a rental-to-own type model. So we had a contract that worked. We worked very closely with regulators, our Australian Taxation Office, and we have a private binding ruling system. So we've got rulings that this was Sharia compliant. I beg your pardon, not Sharia compliant, that this Sharia compliant product was consistent with Australian tax laws. So there's no adverse tax consequences. And we did that on our own. We didn't do it, we didn't really have help from the Australian government in that sense. I mean, as Rajat says, I mean, the populations are very small. But there was enough in the Sharia compliant contracts to have something that worked. So once we got over that requirement, the second issue was then how do you fund this thing? So how do you actually fund it? And because of high house prices, when we talk about the Australian loan market being 1.7 trillion, even a small amount of money for 600,000 Muslims who are buying houses is going to be a big number, right? So we initially did what most people do, and in talking to people in the last couple of days, I noticed we're focusing on overseas. Looking at money from the GCC or looking at money from Malaysia or elsewhere. One of the hard realities we faced in Australia is this. I'm not sure if you faced the same in India, but one reality we faced is that we are an Australian dollar economy, right? We're Australian dollars. The Aussie dollar is one of the most volatile currencies in the world. So by that I mean on an intraday basis, our currency fluctuates up and down, right? What that means is that if you are a US dollar investor, when you come into Australia, you come into Aussie dollars and you swap back out to US dollars, those swap points are expensive. Now what that translates down into is this. If you're coming in from the Middle East and you're effectively a US dollar balance sheet, you invest in Australia, by the time you get your return and you pay the costs of hedging, etc., you're almost getting a 0% return. Right? So making the pitch to markets overseas for, capital markets overseas for Australian finance was near impossible, right? A couple of things happened to change that. Now, the one thing that we really relied on was the fact that we have a very large and mature pension fund market in Australia. I said it's worth $2.7 trillion. So what we did was we said, we're not going to go externally, let's look at our internal funding. Let's see what we get from knocking on doors in Australia. And the reality was that when the business proposition is put, and we're focusing on financial inclusiveness, we're focusing on a business model that actually works, there's enough in the market in Australia for, in terms of what we found, there's enough of a market to find investors within Australia who say, well, we'll give this a go because one, it's a rental to own product, so we understand that. It's not something unusual. It's legally binding in Australia. That's something we worked with lawyers to achieve. And we got tax rulings on it. So they were comfortable with it. And at the end of the day, it's an asset class they know. It's Australian property. They know what that is. So we funded it domestically. And I think that's the key to it. So we've done that. So it's about 200 million. We're growing at a rate of about $80 to $100 million a year. And at the moment, we have more than enough to fund us domestically. So we're not looking externally. But in doing that, we've seen changes in the market. So One of the large banks in Australia, the National Australia Bank, is now offering commercial finance, which is Sharia compliant, and that's really assisting businesses and developers within Australia that want to, that have Sharia compliant parameters to access senior debt finance. Again, senior debt finance from overseas is going to be too expensive for the reasons I mentioned. So we had to have a domestic Australian solution. And I think that you've got to start from somewhere. As Alberto said, you've got to start from the really bottom, which is what we did. At the end of the day, the market may be worth 5, 10 billion. It's never ever going to be anything in comparison to a market that's worth, 3.5 trillion, which is what the Australian banking asset market is. So I don't think we're ever going to win those battles, but what you will do is you start from scratch and have a good business model and a domestic model, and it can grow from there. I might close there, as we ask questions later on, I'll further elaborate on that. Thank you.
I think we're hearing some common themes here. Assad said the same thing. He didn't have the luxury of the laws in his country supporting the development of Islamic finance. So he has worked within the ambit of his existing laws. And to recap what Brother Alberto said, that there is no jurisdiction in this world that has actually come out with a law, with laws that says, thou shalt not be able to do Islamic finance. And so we here in India, we're actually a common law-based system, and so is Australia, and so is Malaysia. And the common law system actually makes it rather easy for us in terms of the concepts of beneficial trust, which may not exist within some civil law framework. So it is encouraging to hear that the same theme over and over again for those who have made it happen. For those who have made it happen means that we can make it happen too here. Same themes, that they talk about financial inclusion, inclusiveness, and not divide. So that's crucial. The use of existing laws, and as a very good example in Australia, because he cannot do a sale and lease back because of the taxation laws, he did a lease to own instead. Just like what we did earlier in Singapore, it was a lease to lease. So you have to think within your ambit and also outside the existing box, because no single model you can just sort of cut and paste. The Malaysian model cannot work for you because you simply don't have a top-down approach. And a bottom-up approach is, I think, listening to at least the first 3 speakers is something that we can really push here, because you have 180 million strong, 180 million reasons to do this. So I think that with a little bit of push and effort by everyone, particularly those in this room, inshallah, maybe one day, India could be that center of Islamic finance excellence, purely by the sheer of volume. I've also left the best for last, because our brother Abdul Rakif, as all of you know here, is a keen proponent of Islamic finance. Because he's gone through so much over the last so many years, I can understand some of his misgivings. I can also understand why he feels that he has to wait until the 2019 elections come before things can change. I understand because after RBI says that, we're not really going to do Islamic banking. But I have to also be frank. RBI says they don't want to be the patron of Islamic banking, would not kill Islamic finance. You don't need to have an Islamic bank structured after, say, a Malaysian Islamic bank, because like Brother Alberto says, the concept of Islamic banking in itself is a conventional one. So at the end of the day, how Islamic finance will develop here in India, maybe Abdul Rakif, maybe brother, you can tell us. It has to possibly, in my view, take a shape of its own. not so much one that we do wherever we come from. What do you say?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Good afternoon to everybody. When I'm seeing in the audience some of the stalwarts who have been working for the introduction of Islamic finance and banking in the country, I feel humbled. But I thank the UEF and WIEF for giving me this opportunity to speak a few words on what is happening in India, what are the barriers, what steps you have taken, and how India is so important for us for this Islamic finance and banking. First of all, I want to tell that some of the things that have been being done here, for example, in the multi-state cooperative societies or the cooperative societies under which a lot of cooperative societies are working, similar to what our brother from Sri Lanka, Amana Bank, has said, giving loans on gold and so many other things. Similar things are happening throughout India, south of India, and it is under several names, named Jan Seva Multi-State Cooperative Society, Sahulat Microfinance Society, Al Khair, and so many names are there throughout the country. Again, I just want to tell you that Reserve Bank of India, the Central Bank of India, came out with 2 reports based on very important interdepartmental groups, and also another committee which was formed by Prime Minister Modi himself has formed that committee. They came out with a result that yes, interest-free windows can be introduced into the conventional banks of this country. But because of the political pressure that has been held up, and I'm sure, as Rajate was telling, that soon after this 2019, when any government comes, because that will be there for another 5 years, and we can approach them, and then very soon these interest-free windows will come into this country, inshallah. Again, the problem is we have got stocks. The 2 stock exchanges that we have in this country has got about 20% stocks which are Sharia compliant according to TASIS. But what is happening? What are the barriers with regard to the Muslims? We are talking about 180 million or 200 million Muslims of India. But the problem is the financial literacy. People save, but where they are putting it? RBI report says that thousands of crores of money is laying idle, interest money, and also the principal money is available, put in the banks, and nothing been taken it out. And some of our scholars, strange things is happening in India, not anywhere else. They say that simply because it is Darul Harb, it is ruled by the non-Muslims people, so it is not possible for interest-free system in this country. And so some of these people are telling, oh, what is it, the Islamic banking or Islamic finance? It is just a modification. Some nomenclatures have been changed, and the same thing, the same wine put in another bottle called Islamic. So there are a lot of barriers are here in this country. But for example, you can see that the State Bank of India came out with a Sharia mutual fund. And to a great astonishment, 8 hours before it was launching, it was deferred. And then they said that it is going to come out with some other alternatives. Some people have given some wrong information. So we are going to rectify it, and then again going to relaunch it. But it is 5 years now. When I went to the State Bank of India's office, some of our friends are here who did a lot of things for that. So they said that not a single Muslim community people or the leaders have come out and then asked us for its relaunching, whereas those who are against the Sharia laws were very, very active. The same was the case. Tapung Haji, one of the very important Hajj pilgrimage fund that is working in Malaysia, one of our great leaders of this country tried to bring it to India. But what happened? It was not being done because of some of the difference of opinion among the own Muslim brothers. So what I'm telling is the financial literacy has to be created among the Muslims. And then what about the other community people? They think that, okay, it is Islamic, maybe it will be only for Muslims, not for other people. And all the Arabic names, Murabaha, Musharaka, they don't understand what exactly it is. And as Rajate was telling in the morning, that some people are thinking that maybe because of this fund, Islamic fund, terrorist fund will come, and then anti-laundering and money laundering will all sorts of things will happen in this country. But what we need in this country, that is the most important thing. Brothers and sisters, this country is an agricultural country, and you know that the worst plight of the farmers are there, and thousands of farmers are committing suicide in our country. And today we require some Islamic products which can save these farmers. Nowhere in the world, farmers who are working for 12 hours or 16 hours, and they go hungry in the night, and thousands are committing suicide. As a Muslim, as an Indian, responsible Indian, we should see that Islamic finance by Salam should come to this country, and we should initiate some type of products, and so see that the farmers are come out of these things. And again in the morning, the Finance Secretary of the Tamil Nadu, and also the Finance Minister and Deputy Chief Minister are talking about the affordable houses. Yes, we have got the affordable houses. These affordable houses should be we should aim at those things. And then again, takaful, insurance. The depth of the insurance, the insurance in our country, India, is very, very low. So we need, even for the medical insurance is not available for the Muslims. So takaful should be introduced, and then we have to go for that. And inshallah, that will be going to happen. These are the same thing about startup. Startup should be there, SMEs. And again, tourism. Tourism, for example, medical tourism is there, heritage tourism is there, wildlife tourism is there. These are the things. Halal tourism is there. These are the things, halal products, halal food. Malaysia is the hub of halal food, and that can be worked out in our country. And as you know, and another one thing that in the morning, it was briefly described by our INSIF chief here. He was talking about the Sustainable Development Goal of the United Nations, in which India is also a signatory. Among that, I think in 27th of last month, there was a meeting there in United Nations, which was chaired by Mahathir Mohamad, and then he was talking that, yes, innovative products of Islamic finance and banking can turn this planet a safer place with all the environmental safeguarding, all these things. So they were talking about the green sukuk. So India needs green sukuk for the infrastructure development, and that can be a point we can talk to the government, and government as a signatory for this Sustainable Development Goals declaration, they have to commit that, yes, we are committing for this green sukuk, and that should be a starting point. Again, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to tell you that India is it is going to become a great economic power after US and China very soon. But along with that, it has got the skilled labor, as well as the technology that has got talent and technology that India has got. You know, you go to USA, all the multinational companies, Yahoo, Microsoft, Pepsi, everywhere Indians are there. So India has got a great talent and technology, and it needs finance. There should be a marriage of sovereign funds, the finance of the sovereign fund from the GCC countries and also the Muslim countries, and the talent and the technology of India. If it is turned into a great marriage, they think Islamic finance will come to India, and that will be a great thing to come. In the last, I just want to tell that Indian philosophy is very strange. Whichever comes, whichever is better, which is beneficial to the Indian people, they have assimilated it. They have adopted it. Thousands of years, whoever come from the outside the country, they have got the great adaptability and assimilation that every good thing has been absorbed in our great country. And I think Islamic finance and banking, which is based on inclusive growth, based on justice, based on the poor people's requirement, it is going to be accepted by our great Indian philosophy and Indian people. So I think, in the last, I just request our convener, that the WIEF should make a task force so that, and along with ISRA and also the INSIF, all these people, and some of those people who are working in the infrastructure part of it, they should discuss with UEF and found out a task force and then come to India and then see what are the great challenges that Indian government, Indian people are facing, and then what are the opportunities that we have got. And if we make a roadmap, and inshallah, I think there will be a great contribution that this conference will give to all of us. And I'm sure Islamic banking is going to come, and it is going to turn the face and fortune of this great country, both Muslims and non-Muslims.
Thank you. Brother Abdul Rakib, let's stop talking the walk, and let's start walking the talk. And there is no need of a task force, I'm sorry to tell you. I have 4 questions for you. Very interesting presentation, 4 questions. First one, is there anything in the Indian law of the land, that prevents funding of first home through a very simple murabaha, call it the way you want, or a very simple ijara muntaha bitamlik? First question. Because the only thing I know about Indian community is that there is a very big social divide within the community. We have extremely rich people, very few on one side, Muslims, and you have tons of poor people on the other side. So what is preventing within the community those people to connect? First question. Second question, the scandal of Indian peasants hanging themselves is known everywhere in the world. My question, is there anything preventing in the Indian law the implementation of a salam contract? Salam contract is a contract done for agricultural products, as we know. It's very simple. Is anything preventing this? Okay. My third question is microtakaful. We've done a lot of work, and the World Bank, for all things, the World Bank is providing microtakaful within the World Bank, and in KL we have tremendous capability of knowledge or implementation. It's actually been working through KL in Tanzania, in Kenya, everywhere for microtakaful. Last but not least, I've been many times to India, never to the south, but I've been to this incredible place that is the Mughal Empire, okay? So the north and the Maharashtra area. Let me tell you very quickly one thing. We are starting a halal tourism in Italy using only the Italian Islamic heritage, because there is an enormous unknown Italian Islamic heritage. We have created a product, and we sell this product to the Gulf, and people are coming. So what is preventing India, which has one of the most incredible Islamic heritage in the world, in the north, to create a package? So forget about Islamic finance. Go the other way around, you know, and start doing halal tourism. What is preventing to create packages offering to the wealthy people coming from the Khalij or from the moon or from everywhere to come to India and to visit those places to offer halal food? And halal food is very easy. Today we had an incredible, tasty halal food, and halal hotels are very easy to accommodate and create it. Once again, this is in your hand. Stop complaining. Do it. I mean, those 4 things are doable this afternoon, not tomorrow. Thank you.
Mr. Alberto has raised so many questions. Yeah, I just want to tell him that the most important thing is the financial literacy among the Muslims. They are not ready to save and then invest. For example, the halal industry, Iba Halal Cosmetics, the first halal product that has come out in India is being done by some Gujarati Jain community sisters. These sisters, 2 sisters have come from the United States, leaving all their job and come to India. And there they started, non-Muslims. They are non-Muslims, Gujarati, Jain community, other community people, and Muslims are not there. The same is the case with stock exchange. The Sharia-compliant stocks that is there both in National Stock Exchange and also Bombay Stock Exchange. And then according to TASIS, which has got the Sharia board also, they said that about 20% stocks are Sharia compliant. Do you know that, Mr. Alberto, who are they investing in it? Not Muslims, but non-Muslims are investing it. So it is a unique country of ours. So we have to create a sense of financial literacy to make money. Money making is not being...
You are agreeing with me that the issue is within the community, it's not without the community. It's not the issue of the government, it's the issue of the community.
That is also one of the most important barriers. That's what I'm telling it. So it is a unique country. That's what I was telling Raja also yesterday, that more than the government, our own reluctance, as our Sri Lankan CEO of the Amana was telling about gold given loan, gold loan. It is there common everywhere in our country. All the cooperative societies and all the small societies are giving. But they showcase it and then they put it in a big way. But here in India, and each and every city, there is there. A cooperative society is there. And if you call it Islamic banking, yes, Islamic banking is there in India, but we want more than in a big way.
Okay, that was... I can understand, Brother Abdul Rafi, how you feel, because there will always be skeptics and there will always be huge challenges. And I know it's a lot easier for us to say and you know, from where you are. But in each of our individual markets, we actually had our own challenges and the mountains that we have to overcome. Outside looking in, a lot of people say to me, they feel that everything was put on a silver platter for us. We had a lot of challenges because we had such a dominant conventional banking system. For Malaysians, financial literacy wasn't a problem. But nobody could trust taking their money out from the conventional banking system into the Islamic banking system. Muslims in Malaysia were raised with haram alcohol, pork alcohol, riba okay. I never knew that riba was haram, and that was why I started out my entire career in a conventional investment bank. I had no idea. I wasn't raised with riba as being haram. For us Malaysian Muslims, walking into a Chinese restaurant eating chicken rice is the ultimate haram thing you can do. But you can walk into a conventional banking hall and buy conventional banking product, it's okay. You can even send your children to Al-Azhar University to study Usul Fiqh with borrowings from conventional bank. We needed 20 years of teaching, then reteaching our people the concept of riba. So you are right, education is crucial. So I think the likes of WIEF and in your crescent, I urge you to include in your own syllabus the concept of riba and conventional banking. For the longest time in Malaysia, riba means oppression. They didn't allow us to link it to conventional banking. We couldn't say what riba is. So a child who learned about riba just says it is an oppressive act. Oppressive act of what? Right? So it will take many years, but I ask you not to despair. We have to start somewhere, and you have already started. Make today the time that you will leapfrog this. If everybody in this room makes a difference, there will be changes. Every country may have different models. The Sri Lankan model is very similar to the Malaysian model. We decided for us to introduce Islamic banking, of course the government agreed, was the opening of windows in any conventional bank. So overnight, we had reach and access to the entire part of the country. There are serious philosophical and theological differences at that time. Some scholars say no haram. You want to do Islamic banking, you have to do absolutely standalone. Our other side of the scholars push back and say, We will take 300 years to do that. And so the decision was we are going to go turn the tap overnight, the entire Malaysia had access. So it's something that you have to figure out. Is it something that within the state of Tamil Nadu, we don't have to talk about all of India, conquest in small, small bites, right? So let's look at just Tamil Nadu, what you can do. What happens in Kerala is not your problem. What happens in Uttar Pradesh is not your problem. Focus here. So what can you do here? If you can find a way to open windows, if not through banking, maybe through shops. Do you know, why can't you make just the Ma and Pa shops the point of Islamic financing? You can do that. You can turn it. In Indonesia, that's what they did in the early days as well. They don't use banking. Indonesia only has 27% banking access, but everybody else banks through the phone. Theirs is a telco model. M-Pesa in Pakistan, in Kenya, Easy Pesa in Pakistan. Are those banks? Is M-Pesa a bank? It's a telco. So think out of the box. Gentlemen, ladies, my brothers and sisters, I think we had a really great panel here who have shared their own journey and their challenges. I'm afraid that I don't have opportunity to allow any questions from the floor, but our panelists will be on the side. So please join me, and a round of applause to our distinguished panelists.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, gentlemen. Nothing sells like stories, and we have beautiful stories coming from 3 different countries, and I pray that Allah gives more strength and courage and inspiration to a person that I call my uncle. I've known him since childhood, Janab H. Abdur Rakhib Sahib. The fight is still on for Islamic finance in India, and we need your strength with us. And all of you, please support, invest in Islamic banks, invest in Islamic finance, and then we will grow. Thank you. 5 different countries on one podium. Where do you get to see this? The WIEF, UEF, Chennai Roundtable. Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for our panelists, please. A quick group photo session. Once again, any of you sharing on social media, remember the hashtag is hashtag Chennai Roundtable, in case you're sharing on any social media. Thank you. Moderator,